Hi, how's it? In the name of Christ, how you doing? It's Karabo. It's your girl Crankcake Karabo. I hope you're good. I hope you're peachy. I hope you're stellar. And I hope you're in a neat little bunch. It is the 14th of February 2024. And, wow. I am going through a lot. Oh, goodness. I want to describe to you what I'm experiencing so you can understand just how bad things get with darkness. Alright, first, let me just put some caveats out there. Kindly note that I am very likely wearing application makeup, and so it's probably bouncing off my face. I'm not shapeshifting, it's makeup. Secondly, my captions, they're not always accurate. They sometimes use a small G for God. They also are misspelled, or it's the wrong word altogether. I don't have time to edit them, neither do I have anybody helping me along, so we just keep them there. I like them because they're cute. Yeah, segment. I like to pink my cheeks in order to show that when you prick me I bleed. Even though I literally do not have energy today, I am overwhelmed. I'm extremely overwhelmed today. I guess yesterday I was huffing and puffing and blowing the house down, but today I am, at the end of myself, frankly, at a precipice. Yes, when you prick me I bleed. That's what that whole exercise was for. It's to show that I'm human. Okay, let's just get straight into it. There is a severity of demonic attack all up in my grill. You will remember yesterday that I was screaming, I was shouting. Well, I mean, really, yesterday, if you speak English only, you probably are not gonna know what in the world I was saying, because I was speaking in my language and I was basically complaining about all these men that keep throwing spells at me, at women, trying to force them to be with them. I got a flood of them, all at the same time, just an attack in one sitting. And my biggest lament yesterday was, even if I were to capitulate to the witchcraft, who among you do I end up with? But it just displays the height of sorcery. There's also a constant operating death spells. Whether or not you believe me is up to you. I want to describe to you how they make you feel. How, when this sorcery is in operation, you end up feeling. I can't even project my voice all that much because I'm weak. I just ate, I had muesli and a mango, but that's not why I'm weak. My fast is not why I'm weak. I'm weak because this is demonic attack, it's demonic abuse, it's spiritual. I want to describe how my body feels. Imagine if you were able to breathe wearing a very heavy moon suit, the stuff in the sky, in the moon, on spacecraft, on spaceships, their suits. You know how if you were to wear them on Earth, they're very heavy. The reason why they are so heavy is in order to enable those in outer space who are subject to who are subject to zero gravity, so their bodies can stay on the ground, so they, can keep on coming back down because their suits are so heavy. But if you were to wear those same suits right here on Earth and just walk around, it would just be too much, too much resistance, too much weight on you. It's not the kind of outfit that one would be okay wearing for any amount of time and be okay. How I feel is like I'm wearing a space suit, but not in space, but on Earth and underwater. So a space suit on Earth but underwater, and I'm having to walk or get through with that weight on me. And then over and above it, I don't know if you guys have experienced pressure on your ears, when you go somewhere and the climate changes, the atmosphere, and then all of a sudden your ears get closed. Well, they're not already closed, but it's like you're underwater. I don't know, it's like your ears get blocked. I don't know, because of the pressure in the room or whatever, just a change of climate or whatever. Yeah, that's how it feels in my ears, just clogged up with all that, and my brain is scattered all over the show. I have a set routine every single day, and I have this drink that I drink in the mornings that I make, that I leave in the fridge overnight, etc. My protein shake. I've communicated it before in my ministry. This drink, I look forward to it Every day I look forward to it. Every morning when I wake up, like, yeah, to begin my day, I look forward to it because it's like an injection, a boost. It really juves me up. It also has this bitter taste that I've grown accustomed to. I've grown used to it. It's grown on me, and I like it. I like that lingering bitter aftertaste of aloe on my tongue. I like it. It feels like a zzz, you know, a little bit of a tease in the morning to really get you out of your slump. So there's no way that I would ever forget to drink my drink, because I actively look forward to it. I actually look forward to it. Yeah, every single day I look forward to having that drink in the morning after waking up, or afternoon, depending on what time I wake up. I usually sleep in the wee hours of the morning. Yeah, this morning I forgot to drink my drink. I had to get up from this side to go and drink it, because I realized later on after the act that there was no bitterness on my tongue. That bitter taste, that aftertaste from bitter aloe, it lingers for like an hour in my mouth, and it wasn't there. And I remembered that, oh, I didn't have my drink, and that was really weird to me, because I always remember to take my drink, because I look forward to taking it. It's something I actively look forward to daily. It's the thing that gets me up, you know. Yeah, that finally officially just gives me that booster cable boost. I forgot it. Yeah, I just went in the kitchen, drank my water, washed the dishes, and got out without taking my drink, and it took me an hour to realize that I hadn't had my drink. My brain is wool, it is fuzzy, there is a lot of noise going on, and then when I was sleeping, I don't usually have to wake up to pee, because I make sure that my bladder is nice and empty before I sleep, so I sleep all throughout, right? But by the time it's time to wake up, there is collected urine that has to go. But by then I'm ready to wake up. It's very rare for me, however, to get woken up to use the bathroom. It's rare. And when it does happen, it disturbs my sleep. I have to get up from this side, go that side, and pee, come back. And one of the biggest reasons I can't stand waking up is, yes, it's disturbing. Who wants to wake up? But also because it becomes hard to fall back asleep again. The reason why it becomes hard to fall back asleep again is not because I'm not tired. It's because I have to sleep all my 8 hours in one foul, sweeping sitting. Because when I wake up, I am burdened by what I just saw in my dreams. I've got a spiritual gifting, a prophetic gifting, and it's very busy. It alerts me, it will basically go through it, tells me what's going on, and then I also find out what witches are doing through it. Yeah, people can't cast spells on me without me finding out. I find out whether or not they want me to find out, whether or not they do cloaking spells, whether or not they try to conceal it, whether or not they try to hide their faces, whether or not they, because they know of my gift, try to basically prevent me from dreaming. I dream. There's no way I can ever get attacked by a demon or sent a spell, anything of that nature, without finding out. It is inevitable. So, because people are as busy as they are, every morning I wake up with fresh understanding as to what's being done to me, or what's been done to people in my family or around. And then there's like God speaking to me, telling me this is what's happening in your country, this is what's happening across the globe, you know, prophecy basically. And what I see is horrible, more than it is good. I barely ever see anything good. I barely see anything good. And the guys, I don't like my gift. Don't I like my gift? Look, I am burdened by it. I wouldn't be so burdened if I didn't live in the time that I live in. If I wasn't alive in 2024, my gift wouldn't be so bad a burden. But my gifting is not just an environment where God deposits prophecy, but it's also an environment where I find out what people are doing. And oh guys, people are, and it's like it, y'all. It's hard to have this gift because I seriously do not know how nobody can see, even physically, never mind spiritually, never mind dreaming. I don't know how anyone does not see the demonic chaos in this country and across the world. I would not be so bombarded spiritually if things were not that bad. Guys, so many people are practicing witchcraft. I am not exaggerating, okay? There are more of them than we are aware of. There are more of them than, frankly, anybody ought to be comfortable. And their sorcery like crossbreeds, because it clashes in the cosmos with each other. And that one person will try to effect something that goes that direction using witchcraft, and another person will try on the exact same thing that goes the opposite direction. So all of these things are intermingled in the cosmos, creating that resistance, and therefore yielding frustration on the part of the witches. Because one person has cast a spell on one thing to go that way, and another person has cast a spell on the same thing to go that way, and their witchcraft intersects. Because they want opposite things concerning the same thing. And it just sits around here hovering in its demonic nature, causing the witches in question, frustration. I will say that again. They wait to see if their witchcraft is taking effect or has taken effect after some time has progressed. And when they don't get results, or when they notice that it did not work as a plan, they don't just let it go. They don't let it go. They go back to the drawing board. They do not let it go. They go back to the drawing board, and so they keep clashing with each other spiritually, basically until one of them dies or gives up. Unfortunately, however, there aren't only 2 people on Earth, but billions. And so these multiple permutations of witchcraft that desire different things out of the exact same things are so many. There are so many varying outcomes based on what so many people want out of the same thing, that there's just nothing but screaming chaos in the cosmos from these multiple permutations of the same spell, of different spells cast on the same thing, therefore making it impossible for any of them to get what they want truly. And the result is chaos. And the result is what I see in my dreams. I see their freaking crossbreeding witchcraft, and I see all the times that they go back to the drawing board. I see them trying over and over and over and over again, them failing and them wasting their hard-earned money on trying again and again and again. Following which they then get severely demon-possessed, and so they fetch bigger and bigger spells against the same target. And it just keeps going on a loop like that. It's been happening like that in my particular life, I've been seeing it for like 10 years. And the effect of this conflicting sorcery against the same target has not only been against strangers or people I don't know, countries that I don't live in, right, that God is showing me, but it is also against me personally. So I will use my own story and my own testimony to help you understand how this witchcraft feels in the body of the victim when there are contrasting spells cast on the same target, how that person feels, because I'm that person and there are many like me. I already told you about the space suit for 0 gravity, but on Earth, that weight on your body. And then there is the I told y'all yesterday I was ranting about evil men and the korobela. That would be a love spell. Evil men, yo, I'm just gonna allow me to just be, and ultimately I'll be able to seal a point. Y'all know that's how it is that I do, right? If you've been watching me, which is very, very barely, but I have enough evidence to run with to know that at least 5 people watch me every day. At least 5, and that's all I need, because the kingdom of heaven rejoices when even one sinner repents. So welcome 5 people, thank you for tuning in daily. And if you're new, 6th person, I appreciate. It's worth my while to speak laboriously on a loop about these things, even for just 5 people, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to snatch souls out from the flames, and I'm trying to get people to come with in the rapture, because that is definitely happening. There is no way it's not, because the human race is not going to repent on its own. They're not going to just stop. This thing is not going to end. Newton has a law of motion. It says an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted on by another force. This witchcraft is in motion, and there is no other force that's going to stop it in the direction that it's going other than something cataclysmic and supernatural. Because people are too rapacious and substandard in the way they think to stop on their own. Therefore, they need a supernatural event like a rapture. There is no way this ends in any other way. I've been doing my calculations left and right, up and down, trying to see if there is a feasibility of somehow living out this, this life a couple of years down the line, And at this rate, it's impossible for the earth to continue. Not in the sight of God, not when the world looks like this, not when it's so sodomic. No. He has never ever suffered something so evil long. He's never ever suffered something so evil indefinitely. He always cuts it short, and we've gotten there. So let's go back to the description. You know, the spacesuit, that's how people feel, walking around in it, but you're on Earth, so you're in gravity, but you're wearing a zero gravity suit, so it's heavy. It's also underwater, so you're resisted by all that water. There's pressure in your ears, so every so often when you speak, it's like there's an echo in your ear, right? Your brain is woolly, foggy, to a point where you cannot forget things that you easily remember because they're part of your routine and you find them special or spectacular. You prefer them, you like them, you favor them, so it's impossible for you to forget them. You forget even stuff like that. You just get fuzzy. Your words get mumbled and jumbled. It's like your brain is shaking in your head, and because it's not standing still, you can't just like gather your thoughts and operate as a coherent, pieced together human being. You are scattered. Thank God that's temporary, because the dust does eventually settle if you're a Christian. But just in the run up to that settling, you go through this. And I'm trying to highlight right now that this here is not just a phenomenon that slaps believers, it slaps unbelievers too, who don't have the tools they need to overcome this, to conquer. So they end up, I will speak about that later too. Alright, cool. So you're all woolly in your brain. Your ears are blocked, so you feel an echo every time you speak. You feel like you're walking underwater in a spacesuit that's very heavy, so you can't be your fluid self. On top of that, there is a drunkenness, like an intoxication you feel. It is thoroughly, I don't drink, I don't smoke, but I used to drink, and I have smoked weed before. Didn't really linger on me though, thank God. And the sense of drunkenness that you feel is that which you can equate to the very beginning stages of being both high and drunk at the same time. So you're not only staggering about like a drunk, but you are also dazed like a high person. Just dazed. Spacek. Not here entirely. In another realm. And you know how when you're high on weed, if you don't know, good for you. But when I was high on weed, I couldn't even stand up straight. It's like I had astigmatism. I was kind of skew. Like with my feet both flat on the ground, my body would tilt towards the right. I hated weed. I couldn't stand it. On top of that, with weed in particular, for me, these were my experiences. I never liked weed because of what it did to me, right? Some people experience hunger and they laugh and whatnot and they enjoy their high. I hated being high because I just felt misplaced. It's like I was taken out of the earth altogether, and I had no other choice but to wait for the high to subside. I hated being high. And I would try and do mathematical equations because I smoked weed when I was like, the first time I was like 17 in grade 11, and I used to do maths in school. And I had learned in not only maths but also biology, I'd learned that taking drugs can mess with your brain cells. So I didn't want to lose my mind. I didn't want to lose my intelligence. But here it is that I was experimenting with weed anyway. And so therefore, the one time when I was high, I remember trying to do like algebraic equations in my head while high to test if I still have my intelligence or my comprehension, my ability to understand that arithmetic. And I was able to successfully do equations in my head, but the rate at which I was doing them was so much slower. I was not able to get to an answer in the time when I'm sober that I would get to, I guess, in sobriety. So it slowed down my mental processing. Though it did not take it away altogether, I was able to get to the right answers just in a lot more time. Yeah, well, I stopped taking weed. I only have smoked weed like 3 or 4 times in my life. I never went back. I hated it. Alright, so thank God for that. Thank God for that. But I felt like I was high on weed, and my mind was not as fast as it usually is under normal circumstances. I was able to collect my thoughts and wrap them around one comprehensible bunch, but it took a lot longer than usual. It took a lot longer than usual. So that's how you feel. Heavy body, resisted by a force less like water, ears sort of kind of clogged, brain fuzzy, woolly, mental processing slow, and you feel drunkenness. With the drunkenness, as with like alcohol, you actually stagger like a drunkard when you walk. I'm a woman, and you know how women walk. We have these hips that sway left to right, and sometimes we've got this posture type thing. That whole elegance of walking had just fled from me today. I was literally hitting just about anything I could hit. En route the house, I hit that we have a washing line outside that there's clothes on it, so it's extended, it's out. And I thoroughly nearly hit it. It's around my height. It comes to here by my forehead, and I nearly hit that thing until I got so close to it that I realized that this thing is impeding me, and I was like, whoa, and I stopped. And then I shifted to the side and I continued to walk because I was staggering, foggy minded, slow processing with all of this echoing in my ear. And my eyes also puffy, dark circles, all that jazz, and I'm just kind of dazed through the world, and I'm staggering about like a drunk until I almost hit the pole. I didn't hit it though, but as I was moving to the right to avoid I guess continuing to ram into this thing, I did not stay in my lane. I did not essentially move enough angles and just a shuffle to the right, like just half a foot basically, that I might continue to walk straight. I just continued to stagger in that direction diagonally to nearly hit the box outside that hosts the solar system that basically gets us electricity all day without the South African power cut crisis wreaking havoc in our lives. I nearly hit the solar system. It's like this big chunky box that is behind bars, that a gated bar that we lock and whatnot. It's very visibly there. It protrudes from out of the house. You see it, like there's no avoiding seeing it, but there's more than enough room between the washing line and that thing for a human being that's really obese to pass through. So I'm not obese, so of course I was able to fit nicely through there. But today I staggered about, moving away from hitting the washing line right there, and I found myself unable to stop on time to walk straight because I just kept staggering diagonally. I kept staggering rightwards until I basically braced my right shoulder against the gate, the box, the solar box, and I had to use my hands to basically push myself away from continuing to fall in that direction, collect myself, compose myself, inhale, exhale, and then continue to walk. Even in my continuance of walking, I was still slightly staggering without the elegance of a woman walking. There was then the little staircase to go inside the kitchen. I don't usually need to hold on to anything to climb the stairs. I might be old, but I'm not that old. But today, I had to make doubly sure that I don't trip it up a storm by holding on to the burglar proofing and everything, the sliding gate. Trelly door to get in the kitchen. I had to hold on to all different kinds of things to finally be in the kitchen. And I was staggering into the bathroom, basically just walking around like a very heavily inebriated human being in the kitchen as I was doing what I was doing first thing in the morning. And that continued to happen. I only described one such event of walking to the house, but it continued to happen pretty much the rest of the day. It's like I had drunk alcohol and smoked a blunt all in one sitting. It happened the whole day. I was staggering around like that because my brain was foggy, everything was slow. I had the feeling or sensation of being inebriated, of being intoxicated, coupled with just the weight on my body, so much weight on me that I could not balance myself on time. I was not light on my feet, able therefore to catch my weight when it falls in whatever direction it wants to go. I was slow in doing everything. That's not all. My stomach, I'm fasting, so some might be like, Karabo, you were like that because you're fasting. This is like my second week fasting. I started fasting at on the last day of January. So basically the 31st of January, that's when I started my fast. It's the 14th of February. I've been fasting for 2 weeks. And this here is happening only today. It's happening only today. It's not because I'm fasting and so I'm weak. This is nothing. I fasted in the past for a month, 40 days. I have held a fast for an entire year before, where it is that I would only eat once a day for it wasn't even just that 1 year, it was a couple in the beginning of my sorrow. I only ate once a day, hoping to get out of this in fasting. So if anybody's body is used to fasting, it's mine. And this here is light in comparison to some of the fasts I've done in the past. Plus, I'm not one in the middle of a fast to just pass off like a drunkard like that. This here is spiritual in the worst way. It is spiritual. This morning or afternoon, whatever, yeah, I was woken up needing to pee before I was ready to wake up. And the excruciating sorrow of my heart, the pain, the reason why I struggle to go back to sleep when I've been interrupted in that sleep is not so much because I am the type to struggle to fall back to sleep again. I'm not. I've got a history of sleeping like a baby, and that's never changed, even as I've gotten older. The problem is in my heart and how broken it is, and my mind, how tormented it is. My general constitution is just devastated because of what I've seen, because of the stuff that I have seen in my dreams. I not only see what people are doing, but if it's being done to me, I also feel it, and I've just described how this feels. I have just described this spiritual abuse on my person and how it feels. I would not be the tantamount or equivalent of a civilian in this matter. The scripture says that a soldier must not engage themselves in civilian affairs. They will get distracted. I don't tantamount as a civilian because I am properly and thoroughly a spiritual warrior. I am wearing the full armor of God. I am at war, and being at war, I have awareness of my enemy. I have tactical plans to deal with their pursuit of my person. And I've got ways to survive, basically oncoming fire. My awareness of being in a battle zone goes a massive way to ascertain my safety or the probability or likelihood of me surviving this. It is my awareness of the war zone that I am in. I am not a civilian. I am a soldier. I highlighted that people might be able to gauge that these experiences I'm endured under, unfortunately, do not only hit soldiers, but they literally come blazing in the climate of civilians. This thing that I'm going through is not a unique experience at the hands of devil worshippers. Being a Christian, this here is a ubiquitous, broadly applicable experience to the general human race who is subjugated to the tyranny of knowing in their lives at all, and therefore being subject, like I said, to the tyranny of these people. Individuals that are involved in darkness and for any reason at all make a choice, a decision to afflict them. This here is something that can come for civilians just shopping at the mall, not on a battlefield, not in some bush, a wilderness, some strange boot camp for soldiers, but targeted attacks are slapping whole civilians chilling in their houses, not expecting that today they're gonna die. This thing is slapping civilians at school as they pick up their children. It is slapping civilians at the movie house as they're watching Bioscope. It is slapping civilians as they go about their lives, their days. And I am going to explain to you this cataclysmia that's slapping all of us, just how it affects in the life of a civilian, again, using my own experiences as a soldier. But being the soldier that I am able to successfully apply my experiences to civilians because these monsters are like war criminals. They are not careful where it is that they drop their bombs. They do not target military bases of their enemies. They target civilian households, schools, buses, roads, busy malls. I could go on. They target Lay Janes and Lay Jones that do not know Jesus Christ from a bar of soap, and so therefore have no idea that they have got to wear a full armor from God, breastplate of righteousness, belt of truth, shield of truth, belt of truth, shield of faith, sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, helmet of salvation, and shoes of peace. It does not dawn on them that absent of yielding a sword when there is fire coming at you, when there is some kind of arrow about to shoot you, to self-defend yourself, you gotta yield your sword, you gotta put up your shield and buckler, and you gotta get into war, because if you don't fight, you will inevitably die. There is no playing namby-pamby. You cannot afford to be like, but I'm scared, because if you don't draw your armor, you will be destituted. Allow me to help you understand what these exposed civilians are dealing with. Naked in the pit, in the darkness of night, in the pitch of night, as well as in the brightness of day. It does not matter. This arrow, as it is written in Psalm 91, stalks by day, hovers around this pestilence at noonday, at night time, whatever. It does not choose when it comes at you. But these civilians are naked in the street, wearing nothing but jeans and a crop top with no full armor. And they're getting stricken. When I was working at MTN, I felt that was the last year I was working there was 2014. I've been unemployed ever since. I lost everything. And in 2014, at the beginning of the year 2014, perhaps it might have happened at the latter part of 2013, but I would imagine this thing was starting to creep up the skirt of corporate South Africa, ramping up and burgeoning, bubbling like Mbamba in 2014. I say this because I never felt that level of spiritual terrorism until that year, that particular year. I was suspended from my job in about July of 2014. But this thing had been going on for months in the run-up to. Mind you, the suspension was also unfair. But, you know, that's just my case. I've been going through a lot. But thank God, I'm a soldier. 2013, I've been born again since 2011. 2011, first year being saved. Never felt that level of demonic suppression, oppression, attrition. 2012, never felt it. 2013, never felt it. I had accustomed myself to praying. I'd accustomed myself to making war. I'd accustomed my body to fasting. And when you partake in those spiritual disciplines and you're consecrated and you're battling sin, you will get targeted by entities. Yet I have never felt what I started feeling as from 2014, and it's never simmered down. Herein lies Karabo starting the year in 2014 at MTN. I don't know why that year. I have no idea why it all flooded in that year. But there came a time somewhere early on in 2014 where I would drive into work. So imagine a woman driving in traffic on the highway. You off ramp. Well, let's say Hendrik Potgieter, because I wasn't yet living in Fourways. And then you get onto 14th Avenue. And the only thing that's kind of agitating you is the traffic. But it's the same old thing that you felt and have been dealing with all these years. And then suddenly, one day, you drive into the premises at your offices, the actual building that is 14th Avenue, Innovation Center, MTN. Just as you approach, never mind surpass, but just approach the booms to click your access card on that little machine of theirs. In the run-up to, as you are impending it, you are not yet in. You have just slipped into MTN. You're all queuing in bumper-to-bumper traffic. It's early in the morning. Everybody's coming to work. And when you pass a certain barricade or a certain line, it's an invisible line. Once you drive past a certain point, you then get overwhelmed by a feeling. I started to notice in 2014 that when I was entering the offices at work, impending the booms, I all of a sudden was one that felt as if though she was walking underwater or driving underwater. The pressure in my ears creating an echoing sound, the fogginess, the exorbitant fatigue, the extreme tiredness, even though you got your 8 hours sleep in, would just flash over you from a certain demarcation, invisible, when you were driving into 14th Avenue at MTN. It started only in 2014, and that feeling would only magnify in intensity as you kept driving in, as you go deeper and deeper into the building, park your car. I used to park a lot of times in phase 2 because I was never one of those early birds that could get parking in the phase 1 parking lot. So I would have to park very far away, and there were these golf carts that would then take us to the door. When I would drive in, go 14th Avenue, I would feel this overwhelming sense of foreboding, if you want to call it that. I would then drive towards the N1 highway, which is basically where you head towards when you want to go and park go phase 2 parking, which is far away. If you have worked at MTN, you will know what I'm talking about, at least as at the time, that's what it was. It was kind of far away. as I was driving towards the N1, it subsided. So basically, on the periphery of the company, on the outskirts, the dregs, some might call it that, it was less intense. But the more you came inward and inland, the more you were towards the core of the organization, the worse it got. So I would drive to phase 2 parking. I'd be somewhat okay in the parking lot. And then as I would walk into the building or be driven by a golf cart, there it is again. So this thing, it's like the sun or an atmospheric disturbance or radiation poisoning, that the farther out you go, the safer you are. But the closer you are to the center, the epicenter of this toxicity, the closer you are to the epicenter, the more, I guess, poisoning you get in your body. And I started to feel that in 2014. So it was not because I was a Christian that I felt the demonic oppression in the sky. It was merely because there was an increase of it, such that I was able to pick it up. I can't really speak for civilians, in other words, non-believers, how they felt, but as a Christian, this is what in the building, there came a time in the beginning of 2014, it was mild, however, but as the months progressed of 2014, it just got worse and worse. There was a time when I was walking around the office basically in a sleeping bag. Like, I was drowsy all day, no matter whether I'm standing, sitting, whether I'm actively engaged in some very active activity was irrelevant. I was perpetually drowsy all day long. Never mind being drowsy, having to fight through that, but the feeling of being inebriated, just overwhelmed with toxicities, like you feel like you're gonna stagger about, you're foggy, your brain is slower than normal, you don't know what's going on. Yeah, no, that was all up in my grill, and I had to make war with it because I'm at work. I cannot drop the ball. I cannot be taking naps in my car during lunch. I cannot, you get my point. I had to fight it, and you all need to understand here, okay. So I used to rock up in the office at like 9:30, and at that time in the morning, I would get a flood of nonsense, because by the time I got to the office, literally everybody was already at work. Most people had already arrived, but there were some colleagues that would come in at like 7 a.m, 6:30, for whatever reason, being in the office that early. Okay, and then they would leave because they had flexi hours at MTN, and so far as you did your 8 hours, you're cool. It didn't matter what time you came in. Well, it sort of did. I mean, you couldn't come in at like 12, but you get my point. They weren't pedantic about 8 on the spot. That's what I'm getting at. And at like around 3 p.m, 3:34, when some people started to leave, this feeling of drunkenness would simmer down. This feeling of drunkenness would simmer down when colleagues started to go home. And I would then have productivity at those times, which is why I often left the office at like 7, 8 at night. When it was skeleton staff with barely anybody there, I was thriving. And with people gone, the fatigue, the exhaustion, the inebriation, the spiritual heaviness would also go. It would also go. Like, I'm trying to help you understand something here. At 9:30 in the morning when I came into the office, it was bad. Especially as you got closer to the epicenter, out of the main building, the building where it is that people worked. In the parking lot, it was bad, but not as bad as inside the building. Inside the building, from 9:30 a.m. up until 3 p.m., you would be feeling like you were sleepwalking. And then from around 3 p.m, 3:34, when people start fleeing, leaving, going home, it would subside. And then as they continue to leave, 5, 6 p.m, it would be completely gone. By the time only 2 or 3 people are chilling on their laptops at 7:30 in the office in the evening, you would be working swimmingly with just a freshness and a bounce in your step, like it's the day has just started. You're just now only, you're getting your energy. Just now. Only now. You're getting, I am not joking. That's what used to happen to me in 2014 in particular, commencing that year at MTN. I am literally not lying to you. So I then went on right ahead to pray about it. I was like, God, why am I so tired at work? Why am I so exhausted at work, especially during the day, and it gets better at night? And then I get this dream. And this dream, I did not know what under heaven it meant. No clue under heaven what that dream meant. Not even in the slightest, because I didn't really understand my spiritual gifting at the time. I only came to really appreciate what my spiritual gifting was saying and doing once I lost everything. Because that's when I was like, hey, I need to take stuff seriously that I see in dreams, because look at how all this has come to pass. So at that time, I just brushed that dream off. But this is what dream I got. I had a dream where I was at work, and I am not kidding you guys. I don't know if you've seen magic movies, especially child magic movies, like Kiddies Entertainment Disney. There were people walking around like freaking Mary Poppins in the office that were regular colleagues, as in, waving, in a Disney movie when they wave a magic wand, there's those sparkles, ding, and that noise coming out of them, ding, all over the show. Some people would be walking past, like just walking past you in the office, and what is this? Those magic sparks would pass with them. Those are like a person swooshing past you, and then following them is a tail of magic sparks. Just ring, without the sound effects, just the magic sparks. However, I would see that. That was the first thing, and there were so many senior managers and general managers alongside our bosses that God showed as walking around with those magic sparks. That was the Lord exposing that particular GM, that executive, that SM is involved in witchcraft. That's why when they walk past, zwooshing past you, they're emanating those magic sparky dusts. A lot of them were exposed, but at the time I didn't understand what my dream was saying. And then, never mind people walking past and then like magic sparks are coming off their bodies. I then saw people, so at MTN I was on level 3, so that would be like the 3rd floor. Okay, and there was a railing or I can't really call it a balcony, let's just say railings on some passageway that if you went and stood there, you could look downstairs and see the pathway that heads towards phase 2. You would see the coffee shop, and then you would see the canteen on this side, Wada Fish Base. You just look down, and then 2 floors you would see level 2 if you just look down enough, and then level 1. Type thing. Yeah, okay. Well, I was walking in my dream on level 3 in that passageway where there were railings on the left and on the right, where you could look down and see what's going on. And I am not kidding you, there was this one guy that was tap dancing, wearing some pretty shiny black shoes, tap dancing shoes, on the railings, and he was just kept buoyant. He was not falling. It was not considered a hazard. It was not even frowned upon or looked at as like, dude, this is the wrong place to be doing this. You are putting yourself in harm's way, and the company is going to be held vicariously responsible for your injuries should you endure any problem. Nobody was calling this out as a workplace hazard. This guy was, the railings were just like regular railings for, barricading basically people from falling over a lofty structure. Yeah, they were skinny, and it's like MTN, they were made of metal, and they were about that big. And this dude was like tap dancing on these railings with no harness, nothing keeping him up, and he was not falling, and it looked as if though he was basically floating there instead of even actively tap dancing on them. He was elevated, and it looked as if though he was tap dancing on the railings, but he was not touching the railings with his tap dancing shoes, and he was dancing in a way almost swinging. How can I describe it? If you've seen magic musicals, like magic shows that are musical, how it is that Mary Poppins will be out here in midair tap dancing, how it is that Dorothy will be out here in midair in Wizard of Oz like tap dancing, but like on air, not on the floor. There was a colleague doing that. Like, this bugger was tap dancing on some railing, and he wasn't falling, and people were just walking by him, not even trying to highlight this as an issue. What God was showing me there is some people are practically walking on water in this company of yours, are untouchable. Nobody can tell them anything because they're literally tap dancing on dangerous railings in front of everybody, soaring above other colleagues because of magic. They're involved in sorcery, and so they're literally tap dancing on everybody's heads in midair, in the middle of the walk passageway. Go level 3. Okay, Another thing about the tap dancer, he looked like a leprechaun. He was wearing a magician's top hat, but green, and some black other outfit, and his shoes were pointy like that. It looked like a Disney movie. Yeah, magic. That's what I'm getting at. God was showing me, I guess, a Disney movie type scene, because he wanted me to understand how this thing is not being taken seriously as it ought, because it is considered much like what it is that Disney magic shows are, just entertainment for children, where it is that you can teach magic to children and say it's just TV, it's nothing much, when this is destructive. The scriptures have outlawed it. God himself has said that suffer the witch not to live. I don't want any of these practices among my people. And yet Disney's out here creating an entire industry out of selling magic to children. And in my dream, it was like a Disney magic movie, like proper, not taken sufficiently seriously for the diabolical thing that it is. And so because of that, it's just being allowed to thrive. But it cost me my career. Okay, let's carry on to explain to you what then I saw. I then walked towards the railings, right? And then as I looked down, instead of it being the canteen and the coffee shop and then the canteen and the passageway or walkway to go towards phase 2, there was literally like a giant Olympic sized swimming pool there. Instead of it being regular paving on the floor, tile, it was a whole giant swimming pool. And people were walking in this water like there was no water. They were walking in this water like just you are just coming from the lifts, and then you walk, and then you go down the swimming pool stairs, enter into the water, walk, and then up the swimming pool stairs, and then continue to make your way to phase 2, all drenched and everything, your clothes all drenched. And as they are walking through the water, they've got the level of resistance that you would get when you are walking in water. You're slower than normal. You are not going to walk as fast as you would on, like, open air. Those people had the same disposition. What was God showing me with that? He was like, regular Janes and Joes of colleagues in your office are slowed down significantly by water spurts. They are significantly slowed down in what they do. As they're walking through the passages, emsebenzini, it's like they are walking in water. They are made to tank. They are made to be, they like drenched, like their clothing is drenched. In other words, badawiswa. They are drenched. Water, amanzi. If you have a dream where there's just a whole bunch of water, be afraid, be very afraid. It's witchcraft. That's what's good. Depending on the quality of the water, depending also on the quality of the dream, is not always that way. But if a dream is filled with sorcery and you find yourself drenched with water, or your feet are on wet floors and you are grossed out, or it's murky and muddy, it's marine spirits. It's nothing but marine spirits. And what is this? Disangoma, ancestral worship, South African spirituality, largely the grand majority of it spurns from marine spirits. It comes from Metsi. That's why the Sangoma, when they twasa, they go to Metamong, they go to Emlanjeni, they go to rivers and whatnot, and they have to dunk themselves in there and basically receive all of their spirits from water gods. And in my dream, the Lord was showing me that the vast majority of sorcery practiced at your organization by staff against fellow staff is from your country, South Africa, African spirituality, and it is largely pushed along by water spirits, marine spirits, regular colleagues who are out here walking in water. Momezi, that was the Lord showing me the bewitched, and the Lord also showing me that the bewitched are the staff members. It is regular Janes and regular Joes working for MTN. They come to work every day and they walk into a sea of witchcraft. A sea of witchcraft. Why? Because of all the people walking around with magic sparks leaving their bodies. Because of all the people being out here like leprechauns tap dancing on a railing. All the people that are pushing their agenda ahead at the expense of others are causing the rest of the company that's not necessarily involved in sorcery to essentially be set up for failure in totality. They are slower than normal, and what this is doing to the company at large, that is MTN, is making it perform at a lesser level than what it would have, given that some people have been deliberately thwarted from doing their best at work by those who are trying to conquer them, achieve better above them. And if you add a multiplier to that, that makes up corporate South Africa. And so the result, you guys, is what under heaven it is that our present economic status in this country that is South Africa is. Look at us now. Look gaze upon the unemployment rate in this country, look at the underperformance of our organizations, look at the worthless decisions being made by corporate sector bosses concerning the futures of their companies, it's like the whole country is dizzy. And the thing that I saw at MTN, understand the only reason I saw MTN was because I was working there. But if I was working for Vodacom, if I was working for Telkom, if I was working for Cell C, if I was working for Standard Bank, ABSA, FNB, then it would have been the office as at ABSA, FNB, Standard Bank, Telkom, Vodacom, Cell C, etc. Wherever it is that I would have been employed as at the time of seeing that dream, would have been that rather building shown me instead of Yako MTN. So basically what I'm trying to explain to you guys is that this is happening across the country. It is happening across the country. That same dream then went on to progress to a place where I was with 3 to 4 other Christians. And the 3 to 4 of us were made to live. Understand this. We were all employees of MTN. I, however, did not recognize these people. So it's not like the Lord told me that, look over there, John, he's a Christian. Look over there, Tembi, she's a Christian. No, he was just showing me that basically your Christian colleagues, this is their position in your company. I panned my head over to look in some distance, headed into the passageway Yako Phase 2. But instead of it being basically the building as we know it, progressing, it then became like a dormitory, like a dorm, where it is that we were staying. We were living there, while also contributing to MTN as a company that we worked for. It was white guys, 2 white guys, or 3 white guys, and perhaps like 2 white chicks or something. I don't know why they were white, but I understood them to be Christians. We then were all of a sudden, we retired, as in at the end of the day, we went home to some dorm, a dormitory. Understand, at the time that this was happening, I was 29 years old. So a grown woman with her own apartment and everything. Not living with any roommates. But we were literally reduced to students at a university. All of us. And we were sharing the same dormitory, sleeping on bunk beds that were layered. You know, like one is at the bottom and then the other person is on the top. One is at the bottom. We were living in a dorm room. All of us that had bunk beds. And that's where we went home in the evening, and that's where we lived. And we were squeezed in this one little tiny dormitory with all of these beds in it for us to live in and sleep in and eat. And basically this is where we retired to at the end of the day. We were made to live in the squeezed up environment, all of us. And this squeezed up joint was inside the company that was MTN. It was not a separate appendage. It was not detached from the company, as in like you drove some kilometers before you got home. It was literally in the building, almost like janitors that work for a company that live on the company premises because the company has awarded them or has decided to also lodge them instead of just them working there. Yeah, we were like janitorial staff that all were squeezed like sardines in this dormitory, and that was the only place that we could be as Christian colleagues in this environment. In the evenings, we would have Bible studies and then wake up in the morning and go to work. Come back home, evenings, have Bible studies, wake up in the morning and go to work. And this is how we were living while everybody else had better lives than us. And then the dream then graduated to me seeing, like, it was now back to work day. I was on level 3. I told you guys that, right? And just as you would exit the main office area where people worked in level 3, you would then find boardrooms. And I saw this young little, like, she could have been 4'5" at the latest 6-year-old black girl with an afro, sitting on a nibbled away sponge, like rodents, almost like rats had chewed into it, literally with this mattress or the sponge on the floor against one of the boardroom. It was Okrabi's in particular. One of the boardrooms go MTN. Her mattress on the floor was just lying there, and she had an afro. She looked about 4'5", 6", really 6 at the latest. And I know there's like a big difference between a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, right? That's why 6 at the latest. It was not a very big girl, little black girl chilling on the sponge that's been nibbled away at. And there were cameramen. One of the cameramen of which was the guy I dated at MTN for 2 months that I thought was a Christian. He was one of the cameramen, and they were recording this little girl as she was sitting there minding her own business, being a little girl. Do you understand what I'm saying? And this guy kept saying to this little girl, take off your shoes, take off your dress, take off your underwear. Essentially, he wanted to reduce this little girl into a child pornographer. This person was a pornographer, and they wanted to convert this child into a child porn star, and they wanted to do it gradually. But this child was left on that sponge. It was open air and everything for the whole building to see. In other words, every employee that walked past that could see that there's a 4 or 5-year-old child sitting down on a mattress, and there's all this camera paraphernalia, lights shining on her, and she's just sitting there, and they are imploring her to take off her shoes, take off her clothes, so she could do porn, so she could do pornography. And this was happening in front of staff members, and nobody called it out. Nobody got this guy arrested. Nobody took that girl out of that harm's way. Everybody was just carrying on as normal in Jeffel, carrying on in front of this little child. This girl, however, was scared. She was timid. Unaitwere like this, you could tell that she was scared. And when this guy would tell her, take off your shoes, take off your whatever, she was not saying no, but she just ignored him. She was scared, and she was like not trying to do what this guy was trying to force her to do. And then the dream came to an end. That particular section with the child porn, the child that was sought for pornography, I would later come to learn, only years down the line, that little girl with the little afro was me. That little child with the little afro was me. Ish, guys. Essentially, what God was showing me with that dream, I would never have been able to interpret it accurately at the time, because I never would have imagined what happened to me would ultimately happen to me. I lost everything in front of colleagues, and I was reduced to a child, and then encircled by salivating men wanting to reduce me to a prostitute. And the thing that caused them to salivate like this after me would have been cameras all around me. Cameras that I lit myself, a ministry that I run, and there were men out here trying to reduce a 5-year-old child to porn, to a porn star. That level of defiling something that is beautiful, something that is good. And this kid was just timid, did not listen to any of these people. And there were people walking up and down, seeing this child reduced to basically a future porn star. And nobody did anything. Literally like clockwork, it came to pass exactly in my life. I was reduced to a child. Now the scene with the dormitory, the sharing one tiny little space with other Christians, that was the Lord showing me the future of true fervent disciples of His in corporate South Africa. They are going to be squeezed into smaller and smaller corners and struggle in their day jobs to basically do as best as they can to get ahead, because they're going to be deliberately ignored for the very reason that they are Christian. In my dream, I was living in a dormitory with 4 or 5 other Christians. And this dorm was sutured to the building at work, which God was showing me, your corporates are going to do this to my disciples, my true disciples. They are going to limit how far they can go in life, how far they can stretch their legs, how much money they can make. They're going to limit what homes they can live in. They are going to squeeze them in a corner, and all they will have is each other. All my Christians will have is each other. But some of them, like you, are going to be scattered even from the sheep. You're going to be separated even from the sheep. I went from sleeping in a dorm room with 5 other guys, with 5 other Christians, to chilling on a sponge on the floor, being salivated after by perverted men who wanted to convert me into a child pornographist, whatever you want to call it. Now that little sponge on the floor, you must understand, when I first got my apartment, my bed had not yet arrived, and so I went to buy a bed, or dial a bed or whatever, and I bought one little sponge just for the sake of sleeping on it until my bed arrived. That sponge was in my apartment just against the wall, and in my dream that little girl was on a sponge at the time of like 3 months before losing everything. 3 months before losing my job, I was sleeping on that sponge, and I had gotten a dream about that sponge even before I bought that sponge. God was showing me, at the time when people are going to plot and scheme against you to lose everything, you're going to be sleeping on a sponge on the floor before your bed comes. And that's exactly what happened. But the one in my dream was nibbled away at. The sponge is what helped me understand that child was me, and so too the afro. The reason why a child was used was because it was metaphorically to describe what I would be reduced to, very spiritually. I would be reduced to a comprehensively dependent child, encircled by salivating monsters that are going to insist on making out of me something very licentious when I'm actually quite pure. That dream was God's answer to me when I asked him, why am I so tired when I get to work? Why am I so inebriated with exhaustion and so much toxicity in my bones? And why does it get better later on in the day? Let's move to the next part so I can continue to speak on this.